Peace, King. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. How about you?
All is well. All is well. Thank you for taking out the time to stop by on the platform. I'm truly honored to have you on the show, and I look forward to hearing more about your book and a lot of the amazing work that you've been doing.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Am I sitting in the right place and the lights right? Am I close enough or far enough or
Yeah, it looked good.
okay? I can't see you without my glasses,
Okay,
but I don't like to wear my glasses.
I got you. Well, when I edit it, I'll cut my side out so the viewers will only see you.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that's fine.
So yeah, we can get right into it. For the guests who may not recognize you, definitely let them know what your name is and where you from.
My name is Michael Herbert, and I was born in New Haven, Connecticut, but right now I live in Delray Beach, Florida. And I've been in Delray Beach for about 25 years. Prior to that, I was in Houston, and prior to that, I was in New York City.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And
Um.
in between that, I lived in Cairo, Egypt.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I definitely want to
hmm
hear more about that. So I guess I can ask you just to start it off. You got a book, The
I got
Recovery
a book,
Roadmap. Yeah. Yeah.
the the,
Definitely.
the roadmap to recovery. It's a guide to freedom and adventure. And the book is about me and my own personal recovery, along with my experience as a clinician working with people with addiction problems and their families. So, I am in recovery now for about 36 years. It'll be 37 in February. And I got into recovery through, a treatment center. And completed the treatment center, got involved with the 12-step fellowship, along with therapy. After about a couple of years in recovery, I did an internship and got certified as an addiction counselor through the state of New York. And then eventually I got internationally certified and a certified interventionist. So my first job was in New York City, and I worked with I don't know, Amtrak employees, but I also worked for the medical assistance program. So I worked with all the impaired physicians. I worked for the impaired lawyers. So I was an expert witness for attorneys. Back then, they used to have soap operas. So I would work with all the people on the soap operas. And then I just worked with, regular people. So it was an outpatient program in Manhattan that, worked with a little bit of everybody. And so I went from the high end population to middle class to just blue collar workers. Yeah. hmm
Wow. Okay. Okay, man. That's definitely something that a lot of people can relate to, if not, personally, maybe their family or friends. So I'm definitely, um, I take my hat off to you. You know what I'm saying? That's courageous of you to write about something like that from a personal experience. Now I can ask you, why now? Was it something that prompted you to write that book now?
Well, I've been asked to write a book for a long time because people thought I lived an interesting life. Because in my early recovery back in the 90s, I used to go to Cuba, and people were like, "You went to Cuba? You're not supposed to go there." I said, "I know, but I went anyway." I did a primitive living course where I lived in the desert of Utah, and the only goal was food, water, and shelter. I lived with the Tarahumara Indians. Those are the Indians that run barefoot up in the mountains of Mexico. As a kid, I watched National Geographics and those nature shows, and I was always interested in stuff like that. But as a kid, I was a daydreamer, and you couldn't turn those daydreams into reality as a 12-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 13-year-old. And then when I got caught up in my addiction, I certainly couldn't do it because all I was looking for was more crack. And so when I got into recovery, I decided, you know what? I'm going to do the things that I want to do, despite what other people say I could or should do or when I should do it. And I just acted on it. And my whole time in this recovery process, I've been taking on what I would call adventures and doing things that interest me. So it started out, I saw a sign when I was driving down the street one day, and it was, I don't know, $800 for safari in Africa. I said, well, I can do that. I can save up a paycheck and bring a paycheck with me. And that was my first trip to Africa, was in the early 90s. I went on safari. And then I went on 3 others after that. So, I'm one of those people that has a tendency to, I got to do it 5 times before I get sick of it, and then I'll do another one. I got asked to do a race in the Sahara, and it was an ultra marathon. In an ultra marathon, we did 4 marathons in a row. So 4 days at 25 miles a day. And on the 5th day, it was 58 miles. So it was 155 miles, a race that I did. And the day that I was asked to do it, I didn't think I could do it. I trained for it for 13 months. I didn't think I could do it. When I got to Egypt in the Sahara, I didn't think I could do it the first day. And I got through the first day. I was amazed that I got through it. I said, I can get through the next day. And I got through the next day. On the first day, though, my feet swelled up so bad that after 18 miles, I couldn't even run in my sneakers anymore. So I had to do 137 miles in a pair of Tevas. So I wore these Tevas. It's 120 degrees, and I'm just running through the desert. And I got the idea that I wasn't going to compete with these other people because I knew I wasn't going to win, but I was going to complete the race. And so I changed my shift, went from competing to completing. And I took it one step at a time, and I was able to complete the race. So since then, I've climbed Mount Meru in Tanzania, Mount Kilimanjaro. I've climbed Machu Picchu. I've done Veil Mountain. I've done some in Indonesia. I've done Table Mountain, which was in South Africa, was pretty easy. So I've done these mountains because I can't run anymore because um, I have a bad knee. But my point of this is, for me, recovery from addiction is more than just going to therapy and going to 12-step meetings and all of that stuff. I believe recovery is much bigger than that. And so for me, it's about travel and adventure, exercise. I meditate regularly. I journal regularly. I started a Black men's journal group where me and these 7 other guys meet every other week. And we have a journal that we use, and we share our journal entries with each other to create a more intimate relationship. We start with a 10-minute meditation, then we review anything left over from the week before, and then we get into our current journal writing, and then we end with a prayer. And we meet every other week, and it's a powerful experience, because everyone in the group, none of us have had that experience as adult men, being with other Black men and being supportive, encouraging, but also challenging. So, there's a lot of discussion in the group about infidelity and relationships and how we were parented and how they parent. I don't have any children, so I don't, I can't get in a discussion around parenting because I'm not a parent. But I also know how I was parented. One of the big insights that I came out with was growing up, we were always supposed to do the right thing. You know, my grandmother kind of ran things, was like we had to represent all of Black America. So we were always having to do the right thing. So because of that, all of my misdeeds were done in the dark. And I always presented well, but I had a lot of problems that I couldn't talk about, and I couldn't talk about them because you had to be good, and my problems weren't good problems. So I had to kind of keep them as a secret. What I also learned as an adult is when I do the right thing or am successful at something or do something really good, I don't acknowledge it myself because how I interpreted things as a child, well, you're supposed to do the right thing anyway, so why would you get extra credit for doing the right thing? So my self-esteem has been negatively impacted by my lack of acknowledgement of a lot of the things that I do that come easy for me that I'm really good at. The only thing that I tend to acknowledge is the things that are difficult. And, you know, one of the things that you have said to me that really stands out for me that, you know, when you had first said it, I just felt, I don't know, empowered. You called me king. Boy, that's a title when I think about it, you know, quickly thought about it. You know what? I've earned that. That I have done so many things in my life that deserve that title, and someone now has acknowledged it. So rather than saying to you, well, I don't know, why are you calling me that? You know, I'm just a regular guy. You know, I'm not just a regular guy. I've done some pretty, I don't know, powerful things in my life, and I've been consistent at it. You know, for me, with an addiction problem, to stay clean for 36 years is quite the feat. Now, that's not quite the feat for somebody who doesn't have an addiction problem, but when you look at the numbers of people with addiction problems, you know, there are millions and millions of people in the United States with addiction problems, but only 10 to 15% ever get help for it or stay engaged in a recovery process for even over a year. So, on some level, I'm within an elite group of people. And I believe some of the reasons why more people aren't in recovery is they're not inspired by what recovery has to offer because all they hear is you got to go to these meetings, you got to go to therapy, you got to do this and you got to do that. They don't hear about the exciting things that recovery offers. I was listening to a lady who was talking about her recovery experience with Oprah, and she just gave a list of all of this stuff, these meetings she went to, and she went to them every day, and this, that, and the other. Now, that may be great for someone in recovery hearing that, but a person who's in active addiction that listens to that, that's not really inspiring. Oh, I'm going to give up my drugs to start going to these meetings every day. I don't want to do that, you know? But I think when people learn that recovery can really go beyond your wildest dreams, I've never thought that I could run 155 miles through the Sahara Desert, climb Mount Kilimanjaro, you know, and do some of the things that I've done and do them consistently, and it's not just a fluke. It's something that I do regularly. I go to Africa once or twice a year. I started a not for profit, so I helped these kids, 137 kids. I was able to get desks for them all. Um, they eat 2 eggs for lunch every day as a result of me getting them chickens. I didn't get them chickens on my own. You know, I started a not for profit and got donations for it, but we got chicken coops and 200 chickens. And now these kids get lunch. They're incentivized to go to school. So, there's a lot of things that I have done in this process that I can really start to feel proud of. And I would like to be able to get other people to join me in this process because the world is a whole lot bigger when you put down, that drink and that drug. When I was using, my only concern was getting more or managing the effects of my use or thinking about, again, how I was going to get more or using. When I got into recovery, the world opened up. Of course, there were, responsibilities, bills that needed to be paid, go to work, all of that kind of stuff. But if I was consistent with that, there was always a payday. And there was always something for me to benefit from as a result of hard work. And, there's a part of me that wants to say, some people may be listening, well, this guy is lucky. He can do all these things. I can't do it because I have this and I have that. Listen, I didn't start with anything. I was able to carve a way for these things to happen. And, people used to say, you can be anything you want to be. And I didn't believe that because I thought I should want to be a doctor or an astronaut, I don't want to be a doctor or an astronaut. All I wanted to do was travel. And I've been able to travel. All I wanted to be able to do is work out regularly. I'm a beekeeper. I wanted to learn beekeeping, so I learned beekeeping. I'm not going to be a nuclear physicist. I don't want to become that. I don't want to become a nurse. I don't want to become a lawyer, but I can become the things that I want to be, but it does take work to do it.
Yeah, yes indeed, yes indeed. And like I say, you inspiring me, you empowering me. I look forward to, being your age one day and trying to keep up with, the wonderful things that you have done. Now I can ask you this.
Yeah.
Now what was the writing process like? Was there any difficulties actually writing it out, and how long did it take?
Well, listen, I started writing my book in January of this year, and I was done by June. And for me, I didn't write the book maybe the way a traditional person would write the book because I really didn't know how to start. So I started with my name and where I was from, and it went from there. But I also got a recording, and I started to record my story, and my brain works faster than my hand, and I can talk faster than I can write. So if I could record all of this and then have it transcribed, then I can move the words around as I'm looking at it and put it together with all of my jumbled thoughts that I put into the recording got transcribed. I was then able to write the book. So I didn't write 200 pages. What I did was I recorded 200 pages and then looked at my recordings and placed things where they needed to be placed in the book, and then I had an editor edit the book for me. The traditional way would have taken me a long time, and because I probably have attention deficit disorder, I would have lost interest in completing it, or I would have put it down so many times and never picked it up. It wouldn't be worth it, and it would be just one of those other things that, I had an idea to do about it, to do it, but I never completed it. And so this is something that I want to complete. And probably over the last 10 years, I have put a real concerted effort into completing the things that I started. This year, I, like I've been working in the field of addiction now for, over 30 years. How do I want to end my career? Do I want to end kind of fading out into the sunset as, the forgotten guy? or do I want to end on a bigger note? And I decided I wanted to end on a bigger note, but I didn't know where I was going with this. So at the beginning of the year, I started journaling. I also started writing the book. I had been meditating for several years, but I really put an effort into meditating 3 or 4 times a day. I started doing yoga 5 days a week. Um, I took a permaculture course, so I'm planting. I had these beehives. I was managing the bees, and I had moved away from working with people clinically. I kept about 10 hours a week, and I ran a group per week, because I knew when an opportunity came for me, if I had a full caseload of clients, I wouldn't be able to accept the opportunity. So I wanted to leave myself some space. If an opportunity were to arise, I could accept it. Now, as a result of writing the book came out September 2nd. On August 29th, I got offered a speaking engagement overseas. The day before that, I got a speaking engagement in Georgia. So things are starting to happen for me. This week, I got 5 new clients just out of the blue. It wasn't that I did anything. It wasn't even as a result of the book, because none of these people knew I wrote a book. But I think I was able to manifest what is going to happen next, because I also did not concern myself with money or making things happen. I get it all messed up sometimes when I'm trying to force an outcome or make something happen. This time, what I did was I trusted the process, and I allowed things to happen the way that they happen. And things have worked out for me so far. Now, I know where I am right now. I have to put probably more energy into doing certain things to move forward. I've had that time, I'm going to call it, to rest, contemplate, allow the universe to take care of me. Now I have to do a little bit more work, and I'm up for the work because I have rested. And, for me, it was amazing to trust this idea about money and not being focused on making money, because I can make money. It's no big deal for me to make money. Um, but what happens is I get so caught up in the money and thinking about money and hoarding money that, number one, I can't enjoy it because I'm letting it pile up. And I can't focus on anything else. And I don't know that there's a spiritual aspect to that kind of thinking. I think there's some benefit to letting go and trusting that you're going to be okay. And I've been able to trust that I'm going to be okay, and I've been okay. So, that's kind of what's been going on for me this year. Yeah.
Yeah, you made a great point. I mean, that's one of the things that we grapple with in life. It's like I was thinking, like people say, is it how much money you make? Is it how much money you save, or what you actually do with it? Because you have millionaires that have enough money to travel all around the world, but they so busy, making that money that they can't, or they can
Yeah.
afford it, but all
Hmm.
right, I got a week or I got a weekend, but just like you
Hmm.
say, you go 5 times, I don't got time for that. I got millions coming in. Or you got people that have the time, they sitting on the couch every day, but they don't have the money.
Yeah.
They can't afford it, or they may be spending their money on other things. So it definitely it's like a Rubik's cube trying to get that balance. Now I can ask you this.
Hmm.
You hear about like great black men like Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, Stevie Wonder, even Richard Pryor, Dave
Mhm.
Chappelle, the full spectrum of some of the best at their craft, they always tell this story about going back to Africa. And, from what I know, they didn't really get to do things like run marathons and mountain climb and stuff like that. But, did you have like a spiritual or mental, awakening in terms of just being, from the States and returning back to Africa?
Well, yeah, I got to tell you, the first time I went to Kenya was in 1980, and I was in the Navy. So our ship just went to Kenya. So that was my first time in Africa. But I was a young 23-year-old. Yeah, I, landed on the shore and I kissed the ground and did all that. Um, but I was busy doing my thing, and there were more important things to do than be there. But as an adult, I mean, I went to a hotel in Addis Ababa, and it was just such a powerful experience to be in this really nice hotel that was just full of Africans from all over the continent. And you can tell they were from different countries because of the way that they dressed. And listen, I had a field day with just breaking out conversations with them, just talking to people, learning where they were from. They were glad to talk to me. You hear oftentimes, I don't know that you always hear, that there's some kind of rift between African Americans and Africans, but I've never experienced that at all. I've never experienced that in the United States with the African people that I know, and I've never experienced it in Africa. I was always, it seemed, revered as, I don't know, as one who made it, but they always talked positively about African Americans and me. Now, they did learn some stereotypes, and based on the movies that they see, they they have an image of what African Americans are and what they're like. But I think when they meet one, that that view changes, because they didn't meet a criminal. I wasn't a criminal over there. I seemed like a nice guy. I wasn't a drug dealer. I was just a nice person that they met, that was willing to talk to them and learn about them, and they learn about me. So it was a great experience, and I've just been all over Africa. And I say I was at a nice hotel, and everybody stays at a nice hotel. But I also lived in a cattle camp in South Sudan. So I lived on the ground in a cattle camp with the South Sudanese people. I've lived in the Oma Valley in a campground. So my experiences in Africa were on some level with the people. Yeah, I did go on safari and I stayed at a nice lodge here and there, but I've also gone out in the bush, so to speak, and stayed with the people where they're blooding cows. I saw the Fat Man contest. I saw whipping ceremonies. I saw boys jumping the bulls. I've seen the Maasai warriors. I've been to Togo. I've been gorilla trekking. I don't know that I've seen it all. I've climbed an active volcano. I've fed wild hyenas. You know, um, we talk about money. When I die, I want to die empty. There's going to be nothing in my tank. There's going to be nothing left over for anybody. I'm just going to live as full as I can and enjoy life as best I can. And what I also realize about my purpose for living is to help others. So that's why I'm engaged in my not for profit. But on some level, and I don't mean this in a self-centered way, I have to take care of myself first. And that's the example that I want to give to people, is really start to take care of yourself first, and then you can truly give to others. But if you're not good to yourself, you're probably not going to be good to others.
Yeah, facts, facts. Like they tell you on the airline, you got to put your oxygen mask on first, before you can
Oxygen
help the
mask
next
on
person.
first and then help others,
Yeah,
and that's not
indeed,
being selfish, that's being self-caring, you
indeed,
know.
indeed. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you mentioned what you talking about, the Skylight Hotel in Addis Ababa?
The Skylight Hotel. Let me tell you something. I
That's
love that
nice.
hotel.
Me too,
Uh-huh.
man.
Yep. That's the place I stay every time. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be a good experience for people, like you say, when you arrive there. It's nice, it's clean, it's 5-star, and all them different
Mm-hmm.
Africans from different places. The president
Yep.
black,
Mm-hmm.
the taxi driver black, the pilots
Yep.
black, all of the
You
women
go to
black.
the airport,
Hmm.
and I got to tell you, I was somewhere. I can't remember where was that. I was at an airport and it was Ramadan, and I was surrounded. It was in Cote d'Ivoire, and I was in the airport. I was surrounded by people in white, and I was just overcome, overwhelmed with this energy being around these black people in all white. I got to tell you, and I'm in the airport. I didn't expect to have a powerful spiritual experience, in the airport. So they were all standing around, and I just walked in the middle of them, and I just stood there and shut my eyes, and I just took in all of that energy. And I got to tell you, it was just a great, powerful experience. Um, you couldn't have taken me on a tour and offered me that. That was just something that I walked in on, and it was just great. So I've had a lot of great experiences, in Africa. And the first time I actually lived there, I lived in Egypt. In 2005, I sold my car, my house, and I said, I'm moving to Africa. And I moved to Egypt. And I had an apartment, I had a driver, I had a part time job, and I'm at the pyramids, every other week, down at the Sphinx, experiencing all that Egypt had to offer. I went to Upper Egypt, Lower Egypt, um, Alexandria, and it was really a great experience for me. I didn't speak Arabic, so on some level there were some challenges there. But again, I got to tell you, Egypt and Cuba are probably, it felt to me, because those are the places that I've gone to most and stayed the longest, were the safest places I've ever been in my life. And if I dressed a certain way, I always blended in. Nobody knew the difference.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, and and all over Africa. I mean, in Sudan, I mean, in South Sudan, they knew I wasn't Sudanese because I wasn't. Even though I'm 6'1", I'm not 6'7", and I'm not as dark as they were. People were asking me if I was Indian and calling me light skinned. Nobody's ever called me light skinned in my life, until I went to South Sudan. And if I compare my skin color to them, I guess I was light skinned. But they were the darkest, most beautiful people I have ever seen. And I would just stare at people because they were so dark. And there was a part of me that got even angry because I looked at my DNA, so I know, I have European blood in me, and I'm like, damn, that European blood got me so light. If I didn't have that blood in me, I'd be darker. And they were so, how they say black is beautiful, so beautiful. I wish I had had that blackness, but I didn't, but it was a great thing to witness.
yeah, man. It just I be in awe. Like, how could somebody be that black and beautiful? Like, we see dark skinned brothers over here, but
Mm,
they real. I haven't been to Sudan, but I was in Uganda. I seen some. That's on the equator, so they got
yeah.
some dark brothers
But
and
I'm
sisters
talking
over
about,
there.
this was South Sudan. So I
Yeah,
was in
yeah. Uh-huh.
Sudan also.
Okay.
Sudan had the mix, but South Sudan had the dark.
Yeah.
When I was in Sudan on Friday, they would have the wrestling. So I would go to the wrestling matches. That was great. And every other Friday they would have the whirling dervishes. So they'd be whirling around in circles, and people would build themselves up to a frenzy. It was the wildest, from the wrestling to the whirling dervishes. This experience was just out of this world. Here in the States, we're going to these amusement parks or movies, this, that, and the other. The natural living over there is so much more powerful than these kind of made up things that we do here. Listen, some of the things that we do here are amazing too, but watching other cultures and experiencing that is just, it's unreal. So that's why I stay away from the nice hotels. What do I need to stay to a nice hotel for? I can stay to a nice hotel here in the States. Well, I'm not going to go all the way to Africa, you know. And, I'm going to try the foods. Listen, I don't like all the foods, but I like some of it. And I did make
Yeah.
sure that I brought some snacks,
Right.
because I realized in Africa they don't do snacks. And the snacks, some of the snacks they had, I didn't like those kind of snacks. So I brought my own snacks. Yeah, but it was a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I can relate because I got a suitcase full of snacks, man. I was watching the video on YouTube and it was a lady from America. She was like, I gotta leave Africa. They ain't got no good snacks. I felt her on that one. You gotta get, used to, I guess, what they got over there. But now I'm gonna ask you this. I ain't gonna
Hmm.
hold you too much longer.
Yeah.
Have you ever
Okay.
thought about, doing a documentary on the book or even a movie, a screenplay or something?
Well, if you're willing to be the director, I'll do it.
Man, why not? You know?
Listen, I mean, I'm amazed at all that you do and all the places that you've gone and all the things that you're developing. I mean, you are inspiring, and anybody who gets to know you will see that. So I don't know where this is all going for you, but I think I'm gonna hang on, and go for a ride with you, because it doesn't seem like it's going to be anything less than successful, whatever it is you're doing.
I really
So,
appreciate that.
yeah, I mean, just meeting you, I said, this guy's going somewhere. I don't know where he's going, but I want to be a part of it.
Likewise, likewise, because you doing the stuff that I want to continue to do. So I'm hoping I can get there with you. Now, for the viewers who want to, keep up with what you're doing, they want to check out the book. Do you have a website, social media, or is it on Amazon? What's the best way for them to get
Um, my website is coachmichaelherbert.com. I'm also Coach Michael Herbert on Instagram. I think I'm also Recovery Guide on Instagram. Um, yeah, you can find me. There's very few Michael Herberts out there that look like me. So you can find me on the internet. Amazon and Barnes and Noble have my book. I know it's right here. You'll see it backwards. But this is the book that I wrote, the Recovery Roadmap, a guide to freedom and adventure. And it really is an opportunity to look at recovery through a different lens. And it's through my experience of travel, adventure, exercise, and change. I mean, I am a changed man as a result. Listen, I used to smoke crack. I was 158 pounds when I got into the rooms, of recovery, and I was going nowhere fast. All I did was talk shit and thought I knew everything, and I knew very little, but I was open to the process. I think one of the things that, may sound trivial, But one of the reasons I stayed in recovery was because recovery was just a little more comfortable than using. I had gone from having a full apartment to an apartment with just a pillow in it with no pillowcase. And in the refrigerator, I had a jar of jalapeno peppers. That was it. I didn't have anything else until I became homeless. And then I could put everything I owned in a box of Newports. I mean, and I took, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm kind of narcissistic or whatever. When I was younger, people would say, oh, he thinks he's better than us. And I really didn't think I was better than other people, but I was just afraid. And so I presented as arrogant to keep people at a distance. And I got to tell you, it was just humiliating to see myself in a reflection of how I had looked and how I had become, because I became something very different than my hopes and dreams were for myself as a child. And I got myself in a position that I had no ability to get out of on my own. And I used to take great pride in my independence, but my independence had got me stuck. I didn't know how to ask for help. I was ashamed to ask for help. Like, if you ask for help, that means there's something wrong with you. Your job is to show people that there's nothing wrong with you. And so it always got in the way of me getting what I needed. I could never get what I needed because I couldn't ask for it, because there was something wrong with asking for it. So, recovery offered me a clean bed to sleep on, 3 meals a day, a shower, and I was grateful. Now, that maybe that's not what everybody gets going in, but listen, let me tell you how arrogant I was. I wound up homeless at the end. And I went to a homeless shelter, right? I get to the shelter and they let me in the shelter, and the guy says, well, you can go take a shower. I said, listen, how am I going to take a shower in there? He said, well, what do you mean? I said, I'm not going to take a shower without shower shoes after all these homeless people took showers in there. Where's the shower shoes? They said, buddy, we don't have any shower shoes. If you want to take a shower, go take a shower. But we don't have any special accommodations for you and your feet. So, it was just like the arrogance immediately comes back. So even though I had been out there, I smoked up all my money, I didn't have anything, but this guy is going to offer me a shower without shower shoes, and I'm going to get all like, you got to be kidding. I'm not taking a shower there. But I got humble over time because I couldn't get what I wanted when I wanted it, and people didn't respond to me the way I wanted them to, because I was like an animal. I wasn't used to people because I was used to doing things all on my own. So I had to learn how to share, um, you know, think of others. Yeah, I thought I was a nice guy, but I never thought about anybody else. I only thought about myself. So recovery had taught me, that it wasn't all about me. And so I've been practicing this way of living for 36 years. And I got to tell you, this year and last year, I've learned some powerful lessons. And there's a part of me that says, damn, Michael, you should have known that a long time ago. And then I immediately say, well, you know what? I didn't. And I'm learning it now. And the only thing that matters is right now. That's what's real. 20 years ago, when I should have learned it, I was learning something else back then. That's all I could tolerate back then. I couldn't tolerate this new understanding that I'm getting now. And now I can tolerate it. Now I can live it. Now I can experience it. And now I give myself a break. I'm not harsh on myself. I do my best to not put myself down. I know that I'm not perfect. I climbed Mount Muru this year and I got almost to the summit to complete, but I couldn't complete it. My body said, Michael, you are done. And I was grateful that I didn't complete the race. My gratitude had to do with all of the work that I did to get to where I got to. And then I was okay with not summiting. That I accepted, Michael, you've gone as far as your body's going to let you go. The only thing you're going to do now is go back down the hill. That show Alone, usually when you tap out, the helicopter comes to pick you up and take you down, or the boat comes. But when you're on Mount Moro, you got to walk back down. So I walked back down, and I was grateful that that was part of my experience. So I'm able to accept my strengths and my weaknesses, and my difficulties. Yeah.
Yeah, that's major. Gratitude is definitely necessary. Like you say, sometimes we could just be too hard on ourselves, because I think about that sometimes. Like, oh, I feel stupid. Why did I know that? But
Mhm.
sometimes it's right on time. Like you say, but
Yeah.
better time than now. So I want to thank you again for coming on the
Absolutely.
platform. It's definitely been a empowering episode. I'm learning a lot, because we talking about stuff that I'm really truly interested in.
Hmm.
Sometimes I interview people and I just be like, trying to get through the interview, but I'm definitely holding on
Hmm.
to every word that you're saying, and I'm processing it. And this is definitely one of them interviews that I think that the viewers are truly going to not only enjoy but learn something from.
And I didn't get to talk about my bees. I got 5
Go
beehives,
ahead, you got it.
and on Saturday I'm going to go harvest some honey. I probably will get about 25 gallons, of honey, because I got about 50 to 80 frames to clean out, and I'm going to have honey for days. I don't know what I'm going to do with it all, but honey lasts for 1,000 years, so I got time, to finish it off. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, that's one of the highlights of my life. That's one of the things that I'm definitely grateful that I got an opportunity to learn. I overcame that fear, because
Mm.
one bee, a lot of people consider it a nuisance, but once I got to learn about bees and how important they are to our lives, and
Mhm.
just giving us everything we need, being a part of that cycle, and just being in the experience and being able to use it for mental health, to be able to
Yeah.
relax and
Hmm.
focus
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
breathe and just touch on nature, and then be able to eat it too at the same time and
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Hmm.
I would like to spend the rest of my life doing stuff like that.